What's up, y'all? It's Will here at Schedulefly, and yet again, super cool episode, special episode. Very fired up that we had this opportunity to speak with Juan Padro, who's the founder and CEO of the Culinary Creative Group in Denver, Colorado. Look these folks up, y'all. They're doing extremely well, highly regarded. Juan and his business partner, Katie O'Shea, they're crushing it, and they're doing things the right way. They have an amazing philosophy on business. They're really changing the way restaurants run and operate and how they incentivize their team. They started 10 years ago. They've got, I think, 15 plus restaurants right now, and I believe he said in this interview 7 more in the next year. So keep an eye on these folks. Definitely listen to this episode, and you'll enjoy it. You'll learn a lot, and you just get fired up about the role of restaurants in the communities they serve, and in our economy in general, and our society, and what they're able to do when you think big and imagine big and have high expectations of yourself and the team around you, and the communities you serve, and just our culture in general. So this is just a freaking awesome conversation. Super thrilled to have the opportunity. Thank you all for listening. And again, we don't have outside sponsors. We're the sponsor, Schedulefly. If scheduling in your restaurant is a headache and you want a simple, easy solution with great customer service, give us a shot. Check us out. We have a 30-day free trial. Go to schedulefly.com and get in touch with us if we can help you. Happy to wrap. Okay, thank you all for listening, and enjoy this episode. More coming soon. See ya. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. How are you? What's going on?
Not much. I really appreciate you doing this one. I tell you what, man, why don't we just introduce yourself real quick, and we'll just kind of get busy. I'm already recording, so I'll edit out that first part and we'll just get rolling.
Sounds good. Juan Padro. I'm the founder and CEO of the Culinary Creative Group based out of Denver, Colorado.
And you're also, like me, a history major who's now involved in restaurants, huh?
Yeah. When you grow up in New England, history is certainly embedded into the fabric of your education for sure.
It is, man. It is. Well, look, so you've been doing this since your group since 2010. How did you get into hospitality?
Actually it was sort of a mistake. I was living in Massachusetts, and I had lived in Colorado from 99 to 03. I was a headhunter. I started in the .com era and then moved out to Colorado. They had a kind of a booming telecommunications, industry, and tech was emerging here, and so opened an office in the Tabor Center in downtown Denver. Lived right on 15th and Larimer Place, and used to go out in that. That was kind of the hot block at the time, Market Street between 14th and 15th, and would hang out at a couple of the bars there and befriended everybody that was from New England, because we all loved the Patriots. And of course, in 2001, the Patriots won the Super Bowl in pretty dramatic fashion. And so we all kind of bonded and kind of formed a friendship. And, fast forward years later, we had all stayed in touch, and one of the bar owners had said, hey, we're going to move to North Denver. They're going to call this neighborhood Lohi. And I'm like, why? And, when I lived here, the only reason why I ever went up there was to go to Gaetano's for meatballs. It was the only sort of Italian American that, I liked in Denver, being from where I was from. So, but that wasn't necessarily the area that I thought they would be targeting. And so they kind of explained what was going on, and we committed some capital to that. So about halfway through the project, money was a little short, and we had basically a decision to make. And my wife at the time, and I came out here in late January. of 2010, and her birthday was January 30th, and she had never wanted to move to Colorado. She's a East Coast girl, and she likes the ocean, and she thought it was freezing. And it's funny saying that now, living in Colorado, being from New England, it's nowhere near as cold, but it was, one of those weeks where it was, 65, 70 degrees, and the parks were full of people playing volleyball and out. And I think kind of took her by surprise. And, we sat down and talked to those guys and committed to putting more capital in. And, but under the condition that we were going to come out and we were going to partner in the operations aspect of it. And at the time that was just really a lot of money for us. So we did that, and that's how we got into the business.
So so you were an investor, and then you got into the operations at that time, but you didn't have any experience previously in hospitality. Would you worked in bars or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I waited tables, bartended, washed dishes, prep cooked, did that type of stuff, but no experience running anything. I had no knowledge in how to run a restaurant. Well, Katie had never worked in a restaurant in her life.
You've done extraordinarily well. So when you guys got dialed in, obviously you were doing it because you had a lot of capital on the line and you were wanting to mitigate your risk. But what did y'all do early on? When did you start recognizing about the industry that you thought you could master, so to speak, and do, as well or better than the others around there?
I don't know that we really thought about it in those terms. I think, one thing that's always been important to Katie and I, and she remains my business partner and my best friend today. We're no longer married, but so that's a whole another interesting story. But she, she started looking at it from a financial perspective, and, we always loved going out to restaurants. We're huge Red Sox fans. So we would literally go to an Italian restaurant and drink a bottle of wine and, eat a couple courses and sit there for 4 hours watching baseball. And we never, sports bar type environment never was really for us. We didn't really understand why people went there, because food was really, core to, our existence and, our family's existence. My father's Puerto Rican, and he did all the cooking, and we always had large parties and people around at all times. Really almost every night. And, so, I think, she started messing around with the numbers and trying to figure out why can't you have high quality food, in a bar driven environment? And she's a stock analyst. She worked for Wellington Management. She's a CFA. She has her master's in mathematics from Harvard. She's a really brilliant person. And within 2 years of being in the industry, it was a sommelier, a cicerone, the whole deal. And so she kind of started, doing all these models and costing everything, and was like, the answer is laziness. And so we convinced a high-end chef to be the chef at Tappenberger. And, he came from fine dine. It was much different than the prep intensive world of fine dine. It was short order cooking, but he really put an awesome program together, and it became very popular. And that proved to be, a big win for us. And then the second thing was, I'm the son of political activists, and, again, as I mentioned, my father's Puerto Rican and my mother's an Irish citizen. And, she was a sister of Notre Dame. She was a nun for 15 years in the convent, and left the convent to marry my father, and sort of has been on the forefront of the fight to allow women to become Catholic priests for the last 50 years. So, that type of stuff was always like, front and center at our dinner table. And, when we came into that neighborhood, it was a neighborhood that was gentrifying. And, my parents sat me down before we, really, I think maybe 3 or 4 months into the business, and said, hey, you know what's going on around here, and you have a responsibility to your community. And we really viewed Tappenberger as a community platform, as a place where, people, regardless of ethnicity or sexual orientation or age or any of that stuff, could come and sit around a table and talk. And, it was an opportunity for us to create a space that would help make the neighborhood a better place. So I think those are the big things.
Well, it's interesting because I obviously read your bio on your company website, and 2/3 of the material is really, focused on what you do in the community and the humanitarian aspect of what y'all have done with the business. So that's a really interesting thing. So that's really been a part of your ethos since early on, and it's a big part of the foundation of what y'all have done with your business, where you've got like 13, 14 restaurants now and a bunch of consulting projects. But it's clear that that's a big part of what you all are accomplishing, and mainly in Denver, right?
Yeah, we have one in New Orleans. Sophia's sort of listed as a consulting engagement. It started out that way, but it's evolved into a partnership now. Sister restaurant to Bardo.
Gotcha. Okay. What about you've raised a lot of money too for not just local efforts. Tell me about that.
Nonprofit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of stuff on there about
the money for both. Yeah. I mean, all the Tappenbergers in particular adopt schools. So, Colorado is not super generous to its public schools. So, most of them run at extreme deficits for after school programs and, teachers' aides and athletic equipment and arts and culture and, all that type of stuff. So, and in particular, moving into North Denver, which was a largely Hispanic community at the time, North High School was really suffering, and there was a dual language Montessori school, Sandoval. That school in particular runs at $140,000 a year deficit, today in a neighborhood where there are $1 million townhomes on every street. So we just didn't really understand that. We come from areas that are heavily invested in academics and our children. I'm not a parent personally, but I definitely take, it very seriously that, we need to leave the world in a better place than we found it. So, and that starts with investing in kids. So, the schools were, we started out year one when we didn't have any money. I think the first thing we did was send the French club from North High School to Quebec City. We couldn't afford to send them to Paris, but 12 kids, I think 10 had never left the state before. It was a pretty magical experience. We felt great about it. Continued to have a partnership with North High School, with Sandoval, helping close their financial gap. And then, as we've evolved, the first piece of advice I ever got was that you can't donate to everything. Everyone's going to come and ask for something when you're in the restaurant business. I never really understood that, and I still don't understand that. It's not a piece of advice I followed and I agreed with. I don't see any reason why I can't give a gift card 100% of the time to something that's worthy. So we've always sort of had that mentality. Our most valuable commodity or asset is time, and money to me is a follower, and we can give that stuff away easier than we can give our time away. And as we've grown, we've been able to create time, and that's really where the impact has been. And you probably saw some of that stuff with Puerto Rico and with during COVID, what we were able to do in the community there, and that really is a product of being able to operate, efficient businesses that allow for people to do other things. So we don't subscribe to the 80-hour work week for chefs and the 70-hour work week for GMs. I mean, our guys are in the 45 to 55-hour a week range, and that leaves a lot of time to do a lot of cool things for people, and and we feel great about that. So.
Do you have, so I know you were, the origin story. I mean, have you brought on other investors, or is it just you and Katie that own the business, or do y'all have other folks involved?
No, we're very investor heavy.
Okay.
Katie and I looked at the restaurant model, and we opened up a place called Old Major in 2012, which was our first, kind of foray into upscale dining. And, I think one of the things we realized was that this industry was just broken. It didn't make any sense. And there was a reason why people said, hey, it's so risky. And rightfully so. I mean, it was, you had artists that were managing budgets, and, I mean, that typically doesn't go hand in hand. And I'm not quite sure why anyone ever thought that was a good idea. What we decided to do was rethink this business, we started talking about what we still call today the path forward. How do we create a path forward for people in an industry where that employs the most passionate people, in my opinion, of any industry. How do we keep them in the industry? And how do we, allow them to take care of their families and buy a home and a car and send their kids to college and all those types of things. So we kind of turned the restaurant model upside down and kind of took a page out of the .com era in the late 90s, where, you had, when all the investment banks and venture capitalists and angel investors, started realizing that the World Wide Web was a real thing, and they could sell pet supplies and shoelaces and sporting goods through a website. They started dumping tons of money into tech, and they created these incubators. So you had, these tech spaces where you'd have these young developers, which, I would say run parallel to what a chef would be for us, that really didn't know anything about business. In fact, when I was a headhunter, we were recruiting kids sophomore year out of college, paying them $100,000 to code HTML. Imagine that. And there just wasn't anybody to do the work. It was an industry that was so progressive that nobody over the age of 25 knew how to build it. Right. So, but under the age of 25, you don't know a damn thing about life or business. So how do you make that work? So they created these spaces where all the infrastructure was set up and put in place, for these developers. HR, recruiting, public relations, meeting spaces, training and development, like all the things that you need in order to build a business, was there, payroll, accounting, all that stuff. And the developers just coded. And all of a sudden what you saw was a venture capitalist writing a check for $50 million to an 18-year-old who started RagingBull.com, which was a Wall Street online. Okay. Wow. Right. And guess what? Guess what was born from that? eBay, Amazon, there was incredible innovation because you let people focus on what they were great at. And when I talked about creating time before, the valuable asset of time, ultimately, when you're dealing with chefs, they're creatives. It is essential to the creative process to create time for people. So we said, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to incubate. We're going to create an infrastructure around our artists. And we're going to see if we can apply these same principles that were applied in the late 90s to the restaurant business. And we started raising a bunch of capital, leaving equity in the store for the chefs so that they had additional income through distributions, and they got rewarded for their culinary innovation. And they had pride of ownership, and they could grow. And if they wanted to scale a business, they could do that. If they wanted to be a one-off, they could just take distributions there, but it became a part of their income and a part of their identity. So what we did was we formed a management company, and that's where we live. Katie and I and Kevin and Max live in a management company. We don't take a penny of salary out of our stores. And our equity is treated just like any other investor's equity. It just sits there, we invest, but we provide a service to them, to allow them to flourish and to grow. And that's what's allowed us to scale at the rate we've scaled at, with the quality that we've been able to maintain. So,
well, that was my next question, because y'all scaled very quickly. Just over a decade, and you've done very well, very successfully. That's a fascinating model. How did you get investors to buy into that?
We ran profitable restaurants, and they got great returns.
Proof of concept. Okay.
Look, at the end of the day, I was just looking at we're in the midst of a capital raise right now, and so one of the slides shows our investor returns. Tap & Burger has returned 1,774% over 10 years.
Really?
Yeah.
So, well, so you're in the process right now, and is that so that you can scale some of these concepts?
Yeah. So what we did was we restructured our company. And so what we were doing, sort of without a lot of structure and process. We were doing it because we thought it was the right thing to do, but we were small. We didn't have the money to create all the infrastructure that was necessary. But what we were great at was attracting, retaining, and developing talent. And that comes, that's probably where my contribution to the business is. And Katie obviously handling the sophistication of the back office, but we have so much talent that when we had a fire at a restaurant, we could just say, "Hey, Blake, go fix that," and it was fixed. Now we're at the point where we're about to scale. We're opening 7 places this year, and we have another 8 already on the books for next year.
In Denver?
Denver, we're going to get out of state as well. We have another one in New Orleans opening up, and it looks like we're going to be getting out of country as well. So we're a pretty exciting place to be. So, and we've got a couple concepts. We have 2 that we feel are national concepts. We have a few that we feel are regional, and some that are local that can have multiple stores. And what that does is it creates opportunity for our people, to advance. And we're at the point now where the sacrifices that we made early on have allowed us to implement models that we believe are the future of restaurants. We have an innovative compensation model, and we have, I think we have an equity model that is, probably seen in some other industries, but now in hospitality, we're 11 years in, and I think we've lost 1 chef in 11 years. So, I mean, our talent wants to stay. They want to create. They don't need to go anywhere. And now in April 1st, we're about to launch, a compensation model that'll allow our GMs and our chefs, if they hit their numbers, meaning their labor goals, their cost of goods goals, and their sales goals, they'll all be 6 figures. A chef and a GM in a $3 million restaurant.
Super impressive. Congratulations. It's really cool how you've looked at the industry, and so much of, just like you said, like these companies like Amazon and all the innovative companies that wound up being the norm, did things that were completely out of the ordinary at the time. Maybe didn't seem to make sense to a lot of people. So you've been at it for 12 years, proving out this model. Where do you look for investors?
So, early on, we were fortunate when we opened up Bardo. We funded Tap & Burger, and we funded Old Major, and we funded half of Bardo, and with another group. There was a real estate component to that deal, so that made it a little bit more attractive to them. And it was so wildly successful that they've continued to invest in everything we've asked them to invest in. And then, look, you have somebody like Katie, who again is a CFA, worked in investment banking, was an analyst, can do predictive modeling. And you put that in front of somebody, I mean, they're going to get real comfortable because they're not looking at you as a restaurant. They're looking at you as a legitimate, sort of investment vehicle. And we produce cash. And, a lot of investing is speculative, and look, at the end of the day, our group, produces, at a really high level. And right now, there are no shortage of people who are trying to invest in our group. It's a matter of who the right investors are for what we're doing.
Well, that was my next. That's why I asked that question, because getting the right investor can be, I mean, it can be tricky and it can cause problems, especially if you're early on hurting for cash. But you guys have been at it long enough; you can do it patiently. And so that's why I was curious about that. Is how do you, like, what are the criteria you look for? How do you know the right type of investor?
Well, first and foremost, they have to be very interested in social equity and innovation. So, I actually just walked from a meeting with a fund today, and had coffee this morning over at one of our coffee shops. And, the guy was looking at our numbers and he was saying, we make $5 to $7 million investments and so he's like, and he goes, "Are you guys positive EBITDA?" And I said, I brought up the presentation. I kind of showed him everything. And he's like, he's like, okay. He's like, so, and he's like, well, I think this is going to be something that we're going to be really interested in. And I said, well, what's your stance on social equity? What's your stance on community involvement? Because we ask our partners to stand with us on that. And so we had, I would say 70% of the discussion that we had this morning was on those types of things. So that's how we choose.
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting because I think I said, like, literally 2/3 of your the bio is about that stuff. So it's clearly a huge deal for y'all. And
yeah, we've got a break. The restaurant industry, is, in my opinion, is the single greatest opportunity in America to break the cycle that we have, that we're struggling with. I've got, I have friends that are in real estate investment and they get tons of money from, and everybody wants to just do it the old way. And I understand that there's plenty of merit in that. You can do that. It works. It's tried and true. But I watch some of these guys who I know better, right? I know they know better, but they're so beholden to the people that give them money. It's like, and they struggle internally. They know they're not doing the right thing for the community. They know they're not doing the right thing, just inside in their hearts, but they're doing it because they have an obligation to the people that gave them the money. Right. And I look, I understand that it's no judgment, but, it takes a lot of courage, to go out and say, hey, we're just not that company. We are, the people that work in hospitality, are just incredible human beings. Some of the most vulnerable though, we have a huge immigrant population. We have single mothers. We have, kids that grew up in single parent homes and that had to work since they were teenagers in restaurants. And, there's a lot of restaurants that didn't treat them well, so, but we have we have the audience, you don't go into, excuse me, I'm on day 7 of a 7-day cleanse. So I'm a little dehydrated.
Is that green thing you've been drinking there?
Yeah, you see that? Right. So I probably should be drinking this one. So, if you are a real estate investment company, right?
Yeah.
And you're going out and you need to raise $100 million, right? There's just not that many, people from disadvantaged communities that have come up that are going to be able to participate in that. Right. So how does that cycle ever break unless you say, hey, you have a seat at the table? Look what's happening in the NFL today. Everybody's up in arms about not having enough black head coaches, right? The problem isn't black head coaches. The problem is black owners, right? Mm-hmm. You need minority owners. You need female owners. You need Hispanic owners. You need Asian owners. You need gay owners. You need all of that. And the only way to do it is if the people that are in control say, hey, I'm going to give you a seat at the table. I'm going to give you a vote. I'm going to let you say your piece, and you're going to be able to impact, because there's no way that a group of 10 white men sitting around the table can ever make a decision for a group of Black men or Hispanic men or women of any color, or, so it doesn't make any sense. And restaurants, we have, we employ 11 million people in this country. These are small businesses at the store level. We have the ultimate opportunity to do the right thing. And that's just really what we're aiming to do. I sat in an investor presentation and, with super high powered guys, and they're amazing human beings. I think the world of them, as people, but, their thing was, you shouldn't be doing this specialty division. But I'm like, but that's who we are. We incubate talent. We create opportunity for people. They didn't get the fact that we were just going to focus on why wouldn't we just focus on one thing? And that's been the traditional way to do it, right? What's the wildly most important thing that you do? This is how you focus. This is how you solve problems. This is how you grow business. It doesn't need to be. So you just need the talent to do it. And they've had to do it because they struggle with talent, and they struggle with talent because they don't know how to attract diversity, so that's the big issue.
This is it seems to me like the money is the byproduct for you. It's certainly not.
It's always the follower. Money's a follower. It's not a leader. And that's probably a very different approach than most businesses take. Money to me is irrelevant if we're not creating change.
Yeah. So, well, then you have the luxury that you've earned of being very particular about who invests, and instead of being, taking on anybody because you need the money, because you need to hit your next goal or whatever your next objective is, you can be very specific and very discerning about who participates in that, because they have to buy into the overall foundation of the business, which is more than just churning out profits or EBITDA or whatever. So
no, and it's a long-term view, right? I mean, every single time we get in trouble in our economy, it's because people push for short-term return. I mean, it's like
myopic, man. That's right.
You keep doing that and you keep creating this kind of like instant wealth, then you're just creating this gap, and the gap isn't healthy. When most of my workers can't afford to live in Denver, that's a problem. That is not a good thing, and this argument that, we're just going to create, more inventory and grow and build all this stuff, and all of a sudden, prices will come down. That's the biggest crock of shit of all time. That's never happened anywhere. And, and these guys just, as great a human beings as they are, it's just the level of ignorance is through the roof on that stuff, and if they're not ignorant and they know, then shame on them.
Well, so I want to talk about the people that work in your restaurants and in the restaurant community, the 11 million or so people out there, because it is to me, we've been doing this for 15 years, and we've been really fortunate that, we only serve independent restaurants. And I feel so fortunate to have the time to talk to people like you and the people that work for people like you. And I've just come to have this profound respect for people that work in restaurants, particularly in the independent restaurant world, because there's, the people that do well in this and that endure always, in my experience, always have some commitment and some focus that's bigger than themselves, and they are dialed in their community, and they have an extraordinarily diverse group of people that are working for them. And the flip side of that is, to me, it's like, if you can do what you all do and do it successfully, run a restaurant, work in a restaurant, and deal with all the things that come along with that, all the constant daily problems, things, whether it's a refrigerator that goes out, or an upset customer, or an employee that's gotten in trouble, whatever it is, it's just amazing what you have to learn to balance. And if you can do well there, I feel like these skill sets that you learn, the sales, the persuasion, the befriending your colleagues, the supporting your community, it's like that skill set is massively valuable in whatever you do, but it also helps you to understand that there are things bigger than yourself out there, and it helps you understand to relate to so many other people, because there is no more diverse workplace than a restaurant. I don't think. One of the things that actually I made a note to ask you this, and I don't want to forget. Are you familiar with the group Ben's Friends?
Ben's Friends? No. What is it?
So there's a group. They're they started in Charleston, South Carolina. A guy named Steve Palmer. He runs Indigo Road Group, and Steve and his partner, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, his partner in Ben's Friends, but they lost a friend about a decade ago ish, who was a chef, who was a veteran restaurant person who they had known for a long time, and they were working on a concept together. And Ben was their friend, and Ben, took his life. And those guys they started an organization called Ben's Friends, and Ben's Friends has been opening chapters all around the country. And it is specifically for restaurant people who have suffered with substance abuse. And it's a support group. And it's done very, very well. There's probably a chapter, I would imagine, if there's not one in Denver, there's one coming, but such an amazing organization. And I've gotten to know Steve a little bit, Steve Palmer, and he's got a crazy story. Grew up in the restaurant industry, suffered with all kinds of addiction, was homeless, and the restaurant industry sort of saved his life, as he says. And anyway, I was just curious because just with the focus you have and the passion and care you have for the industry, probably be a good organization that you may want to know about. But anyway, I can get you connected with Steve if you're ever interested in learning more. But just, I just see so many people that, they pour their hearts and their lives and their sweat and tears and everything into this industry. And it's such an amazing place for people to grow and learn. And I just admire what you've done, man. I admire the opportunities you're giving people, the way that you're, giving them an opportunity to grow within the business, to get equity and to be successful. And I'm super thrilled to hear this story, man, because there's just not there are others out there, but they're few and far between. And I feel like, I'm really curious your thoughts on this, because I feel like hospitality is like, it's bifurcating in a way that, on one end, you've sort of got things that are fast food and things that are getting automated. And, you may eventually have, like, you walk into McDonald's and maybe there's like one person there that's just like fixing the equipment, but it's all, everything's, cooked by robots, served by robots, touchscreen and everything else, which has its place and whatever. And then on the other end is like super personal, super connected to the community, incredible hospitality, amazing service. And because it's something that we all like, we need that. As long as there's people around here, we really want that and we crave that. Do you see the industry doing that as well? Is that something that like you think about?
Do I think about, just so I'm clear of what you're asking, do I think about, how the industry is evolving and like what
how it's, like how
I have on it. And...
Yeah. Just, there just seems to be a lot of automation on one end, and then there seems to be a lot more personable. I mean, it seems like what you all do is you clearly have your finger on the pulse of excellent service, like real hospitality. You probably have a lot of regulars. You probably have a lot of people that, really love your brands and loyal customers and things like that, I would imagine. But so much of that is driven by people. It's not driven by technology and things like that. It's driven by people that, really care.
Right. It's a really, really, really diverse industry. I think we're seeing some of this when we talk about like wages, minimum wage, hikes and all this type of stuff. It's a lot different working in a fast food restaurant than it is working in a sports bar, than it is working in an upscale casual, than fine dine. Then, you have your 11 Madison Parks of the world. And tons of different cuisine. There's tons of product, all that type of stuff. So everything is a little bit different. So it's a tough industry to really kind of pigeonhole. I think the technological innovation in the fast food world is probably a good thing. The automation, because those industries just, they won't survive. They're not really built, to survive with a high labor model. And the only way they're going to improve their product, because here's the thing, right? I mean, yeah, they're super profitable, but the demand of people in America right now, I mean, people are starting to really understand where their food comes from and what labeling means and all that type of stuff. So, you're going to start seeing healthier fast casuals, and we've got some just incredible fast casuals in Colorado that are starting to come out. You've got Shook and Bird Call, which is a real techie one, and it's really more of a technology company and stuff. But they're just demanding a higher quality product. So and the commodities markets are bouncing all over the place. So in order to keep up with all that stuff, you do need to automate. So I get that. I do like the fact that and I think really the group that does the most is maybe Bar Taco in our category. They kind of have a system where you go in and you kind of order through a QR code and it sends an order, and they have like experienced managers and those types of things. Super innovative. Investors love it. That's great. I can't stand it. That's the last thing I want to do, is integrate with tech more than I do already on a day-to-day basis. I want human interaction. I want to feel empathy. I want to engage and have, but that when you do that type of stuff, it does lower your risk. And I get that. Investing in people is risky. There's a lot of factors, that can go into the success. So I understand why companies do it, but man, I hope and I believe that, traditional service models will continue to thrive into the future. So
how do you, you said I think you've only lost like one chef over the years. Now, obviously you've talked about having a forward thinking compensation plan and so forth, but dude, you clearly are really good at finding good people and keeping those people. It's not just compensation. There's other things going on. I'm just curious, particularly over the last couple of years, you've had, a lot of folks have left the industry. I don't know if they're coming back. Has it been super challenging for y'all to find people the last couple of years?
We had like a 2-month period this past summer where we felt some heat. I think it was because of the additional outdoor seating, and we just had more seats, and we were wearing our guys down a little bit, so we needed to staff up. But generally speaking, when we implemented our compensation model, we had a group of people that didn't agree with it, and they left, and that created a gap. And then, man, it has been overwhelming, the amount of people that have bought into it, that have been like, man, I really want to work for your company. And not only in Denver, I mean, we've got Michelin star chefs from San Francisco, New York, and Chicago that are coming out and joining our group. And it's like, it's pretty wild. People are very excited about what we're doing and how we're thinking about things. So, for us, if you're a forward-thinking, socially conscious, empathetic, intellectually curious, and emotionally intelligent person, I would argue we're the best company in the country to work for.
I love it, man. I love it. Where have you taken inspiration, either within the industry or, from people outside of the industry, that you've learned from, that you admire, respect, things like that?
Yeah, I had great mentors. I was very lucky. When I moved back from Colorado to Boston, I had left my company, and I took a temporary position with Fidelity Investments, and got a call one day, and was asked to go interview with a guy named Andy Campbell. And Andy is a super well-known guy in Boston, and he built management consulting firms, and he had a company that was about 150 people at that point in time, and he was a really interesting guy. Like the level of intelligence. I mean, if I could perform at half the level that this guy performs at, I always felt like I'd be uber successful. But, there were some life lessons in there too. And the reason why I got to learn those was because, he wanted me to help him build, and, like anything else, staffing is extremely difficult. And especially when you're doing the type of consulting we were doing, where we were advising executives in Fortune 100 companies. Goldman Sachs was a client, Merrill Lynch was a client, Merck Pharmaceuticals was a client, Johnson & Johnson, which has 68 companies, all these different incredible, State Street Bank, Fidelity Investments, Charles Schwab, all these companies. And so you couldn't just hire somebody and say, hey, I'm going to train you up and put you in front of the CEO of Charles Schwab. You had to find the best of the best. And so, I was pretty good at that. And his philosophy on the management consulting side was that if you're not on the client site, then you're not really adding any value. So he chose to have this like really small office in Burlington, Massachusetts. It was probably, there was enough room for 4 desks, but there was only 2 that were ever occupied. His and mine. And I sat back to back to him for 4 straight years, every single day. And I heard every conversation he had. And I heard, I recall one in particular where we had a consultant who was at State Street Bank and didn't disclose something to the client. And man, I remember him absolutely. I felt like, oh man, this guy's never going to work in this industry again. I was thinking to myself, and he got off that call and got on the call with the partners. And let me tell you something. Nobody gets the opportunity to hear every damn phone call a partner has. I got every single phone call.
That's huge.
And, the partners were like, how are we going to replace this guy? And he literally like defended this guy to the partners. Like, he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, this guy's put all this effort into us. He made a mistake, all this kind of stuff. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm a little confused because when he talked to Chris, the consultant, I thought for sure he was losing his job. I certainly understood where the partners were coming from, but there was just this loyalty that he had established with Chris, that he could have that type of conversation with him, and he was going to correct it, and he could defend him to the partners of a pretty high-powered management consulting firm that went on to sell for $500 million to EMC, the second largest technology company in the world. And it was because of relationships and how important those were. So that's the number one thing.
Well, it's clearly manifested itself in the way you've built your business. Do you, just curious, like outside of work, what are the things you do to enjoy life?
Well, chase around my girlfriend. So I think that's probably what I do most of the time. So she's pretty dynamic, and she's really, really interesting. She's Vietnamese and French, and her doesn't know her dad, but on the mom's side, they were refugees and from Vietnam, and just incredible stories. And so I like to learn about different cultures, and that's been pretty awesome experience for me. And we travel a ton, and we get to see and experience things that I think are that are always better to do together. So I think that's probably where I occupy most of my time. The rest of it is watching the Patriots, Red Sox, Celtics, and Bruins.
You are a Boston fan,
all the way, baby.
Form, my friend.
All the way through. All the way.
I'm a Dodgers fan, but I pull for the Red Sox against the Yankees, and I pull for the Red Sox when they're not playing the Dodgers.
Well, you'll be happy to know my girlfriend is also a Dodgers fan. Although
Yes,
I
I
think
love
that's
it.
going to be. She's from LA. I think that's going to be short lived though, because she got a chance to watch even though we lost, she got a chance to watch the Astros series. Well, we watched the Yankees and Astros, so she got to see us beat the Yankees. But she got pretty into it. And, somehow her Dodgers hat went missing this year, so
Oh no.
she hasn't been able to figure out where it is. But
Fair enough. Fair
yeah.
enough. Hey, it's a great. I mean, I'm a baseball guy, and I just love baseball. But you've got a great, it's just a storied franchise, and a lot of great sports teams up there. So that's a cool thing. Well, what about do you ever listen to other podcasts?
I don't listen to podcasts too much. I guess I'm a little different. I have a ton of like adrenaline that drives me, and I dive into things and I learn that way. I surround myself. I think I have an incredibly eclectic, diverse, highly just successful group of friends. And I don't just define success by money, by the way. I just define success by impact. And I just learned so much from those real-time interactions, that I feel like, it's not that it's just my way of learning. I just feel very, very, very fortunate with who's in my life. And look, I mean, you meet a lot of people in restaurants, and as with anything else, what you do with your relationships is what defines you. It's not the fact that you know somebody. It's like, just like it's not the fact that you know something. It's how you apply the knowledge and how you apply the relationship, what you're getting out of the relationship. And I put a lot of time and effort into my relationships with people. And so I guess the answer is no, but I'm sort of a living podcast.
Yeah, man, I like it. I was just curious if there's one, just being a history guy, there's one called Hardcore History, which I've gotten kind of dialed into. It's pretty cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, check it out. Well, look, you, I mean, I truly appreciate you taking the time to do this. And truly admire what you've done, but more importantly, how you've done it. The way you've built this business, you and Katie, the philosophy you have, the focus that you have. It's just, I could talk to you all day, and it's a fascinating story. And I'm super thrilled to have the opportunity to share it, and really appreciate you doing this.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. It was great to meet you, and hopefully we get a chance to break bread in the future and in person. And I wish you all the success and keep doing what you're doing.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. Have a good one. All right. See you.